So today we'll be doing an exclusive interview about Team AH's case loss in the courtroom. We'll be talking to the party they tried to take down, Mr. Paul Barresi. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing pretty well, Tug. I'm doing pretty well. A small step for man, a big step for mankind.
Indeed. It was actually, I thought, a pretty big step, to be honest. I mean, these people, they have been active for months now, filing false police reports, FBI reports, and then this, pulling you into the actual courtroom. I mean, that's pretty good, shutting them down.
Yeah, I was compelled. I was motivated. I was driven because I was fighting the fight, not only for myself, but for everybody out there that has fallen victim.
You know, what's strange about this, too, they had other operators with them, and at the same time, they kept saying they were working not on behalf of, but at the bequest of, or in a conspiracy with AH themselves. I mean, it was crazy listening to how all that came together.
There is a network out there that since the big win, since Johnny's victory, there have been witnesses and players involved in the case in favor of Johnny, including myself, who have been the target of both simple and complex attacks, including not only the cyber stuff, the social media attacks, but I mean it escalated to break-ins and vandalism.
Yep.
On a number, and we're all connected, but only by virtue that we were all witnesses. I mean, I didn't take the stand, but I was still a witness. I was still someone who could speak, I think, well of Johnny based on the facts.
How many police reports altogether would you say were out there that were filed about yourself or other people that you know of, first of all?
You know, it's funny, you and I have gone back and forth with this, and every time that it gets bigger and bigger. At first it was L.A., and then your neck of the woods. Then it was South Carolina. Now I hear it's also Florida. Now I hear it's also New Orleans. Now I hear it's Nashville. It's like spreading like cancer.
Indeed. And not just that, they weaponized the judicial system, which brings us to our discussion about you actually winning against, again, this Team AH front that in the courtroom. I mean, you're one of the few people they've taken it that far. They went in, they filed a TRO against you. Do you want to explain how that came together before we get into the
I went in there. I'm finally face to face with the scumbag that many people have been trying to get in court for a long time, but because he's homeless and he's a grifter, he was hard to nail down, and no one could serve him. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm going in to face this guy, and I'm not only going to be there to represent myself and to lay down my case, I'm going to lay down everyone else's case who wanted to face this son of a bitch in court. It was his day in court, but it was my day in court too. And he wandered in there with his little short haircut. He had a styled haircut, Christine Taft must have paid for.
Sure.
And he sat there and he continued to interrupt the judge while he was telling his ridiculous story of all those things that you've read about, how he started off by invoking Johnny Depp's name, talking about how important he is, and the judge said, hold on, let's not go too far afield here. I want to know how you met Mr. Barresi. And he got into the whole thing, how I came to him when I worked for Amber to ask questions about what he knew about Johnny Depp. And then again, he went astray, and he started bragging about himself. And I started to think this is the only reason why he wanted to be in court, was to just try to make himself feel important. And then he kept interrupting the judge, and the judge kept telling him to quiet down. The bailiff had to go over and touch him on the shoulder a few times. He was out of control, and my attorney gave me the sign just to stay calm, let him talk and keep talking and talking until he puts that noose around his neck and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and you can see all the wind come out of him.
Yeah,
and I knew halfway through, he lost. The judge said, Mr. Albertini, this is quite a tale you're telling. I find it hard to believe. He says, where's your witness? He says, where's your witnesses? He says, well, Christina Taft, who maintains my files with all my evidence in it, she couldn't make it here today. Well, where's Mr. Palomaros? Well, he was going to be my witness. He's a retired police officer, but he couldn't make it here today. And anyway, it got to my time to talk, and I pointed out that his star witness, Palomaros, who didn't show up, was not a retired police officer. In fact, he was fired from the police. He's a convicted felon, and he's tagged to this day as the most notorious, disgraced police officer in LAPD history.
Yeah, it's amazing to see two felons here basically colluding with these. It's not just the courtroom. I mean, they colluded on all these different narratives in South Carolina and other places, saying you're the bad guy, and they make up these crazy stories. I mean, they're so far-fetched, and it's just
exactly. And the irony is that he came from a hotel. And Albertini came from a hotel where I'm sure he had a good shower and he cleaned up and everything in San Dimas, California, a hotel that Christina Taft paid for.
Right.
So the irony is she paid for his room and board and everything, but she didn't show up to protect him in court. And I think that she did it only because she was compelled to do it, because it's my understanding he threatened, if you don't give me $25,000, then I'm going to spill the beans on what we did. And I got that from an impeccable source.
I wonder if that $25,000 was actually paid. I'm starting
to wonder myself.
Well, they've alleged a lot of things. They alleged them in the court. That's the messed up thing. They alleged them to the police. I mean, again, they didn't just, throw this crap out on social media and see how it sticks. They took it and they tried life ruination tactics.
I'm the kind of guy, I go beyond the pale. If someone gives me a project, in my profession, and it is my profession, I go out there and I get the job done. Usually they call on me when everything else fails. I'll give you an example. There's Gerard Butler, who's a great actor. He's always been one of my favorites. I get a call from his lawyer, and he says, look, there's a mafioso guy over here up on the hill. He's with the Russian-Armenian mob, and he's one of those producers, and a lot of the movie producers in Hollywood. A lot of your viewers don't realize this. There are so many crooks in Hollywood. The smoldering secrets beneath the red carpet, right?
Right.
And they couldn't get someone to go serve him the subpoena to show up because nobody would go up there to the house. They said, we can't get him. The gate opens. He's got security. They go in. Well, I got in. I put on my camouflage clothes and I got in the bushes. So I could stay close to the house, and I sat in there for 3 hours. When the limo pulled up, I jumped out, and I put the papers on the windshield. And I said, have a good day. And so before hell and fire started, I was already down the hill.
Right.
But that's an example of what I do.
Sure.
Another file Christina Taft got a hold of, confidential file, that everything's in black and white. It's easy to understand. She created another narrative. It had to do with a fire I put out for Tom Cruise. It had to do with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. So happens when he was negotiating with Nicole before they secured their divorce. Of course, they had to do an agreement where, okay, you get this, you get that. And at that time, some guy just came out of the blue and alleged that he had a homosexual affair, a gay affair with Tom Cruise. So Pellicano said, look, Anthony Pellicano was my boss at the time. He says, I want you to find this kid, bring him to my office so I can interrogate him. So I found a good ruse, a good pretext to get him there. I'll spare those details for another day.
Okay.
And Pellicano interrogated him. And that information was important because then Bert Fields and Dennis Wasser, his divorce lawyer, could take that information and discredit it before it was brought to the table. Before Nicole got a hold of it and brought it to the table. And that's what I do. I try to preempt. If there's bad information floating around, I try to get out there and get it first. I think I have a pretty good knack for doing that. And that's what happened. And so it was mission accomplished. Now, there was a dispute about the money. My payday was supposed to be $60,000. But I ended up getting screwed because Pellicano got pinched. He ended up going to prison for 15 years. And I was never able to get in there and get my check because Pellicano was already gone, arrested. So I went to Bert Fields. I told Bert Fields about it. He said, look, he said, this could have been a matter handled for Dennis Wasser, Tom Cruise's divorce lawyer. I said, yeah, but Bert, Pellicano told me that he was going to contact you and Ricardo Sestero, who is Bert Fields' partner. He said, well, listen, we wrote the cease and desist letter. He said, I can give you a little something. He wrote me a check for $5,000. So that's where the screw up was. I said, right. Thanks, Bert. Now I know what a tip feels like.
Right. Hey, again, when with us talking too, we had a commonality there. They were adding all of us to police reports and saying we were all in a conspiracy. They brought my name up in that freaking thing too. That discussion with the victim.
Yes, they did. So you and I, they're a partnership, a union of people who lie, and you and I are a union of good people who tell the truth. So let's you and I partner up and let's see who ends up on top.
Right. And we saw how that ended in the courtroom, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. That Albertini was pouting and crying and snickering, and the judge says, when he said, Mr. Albertini, I find these stories very hard to believe. And he says, Your Honor, he says, where's your evidence? He says, Your Honor, just Google it. He says, I'm not going to Google Mr. Albertini. It's funny because those are his fallback answers for anybody that all of this Google shit.
Yeah. Well, I thought, like I said, I was glad to see that you won. I was glad to see that not only that you won, but they made a fool of themselves at the trial. They've all fallen apart. They're threatening one another now. I mean, it's kind of funny to watch and kind of glorious.
It is. It was a victory for all of us, Doug. I think it really was. And I think it's an inspiration to anyone who's listening. Today, I hope that you're inspired to know that even if the odds are against you, never run away. Always advance. Always fight.
Yep.
Fight and don't stop fighting, and you'll prevail.
I think the Christina Taft thing ends up with her getting sued. Honestly, I don't see.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There is one thing. In fact, you coined the phrase the weaponization of the judicial process and the weaponization of law enforcement, which these two people have down to a science.
Yep.
Because once you bring something to the court, it becomes public record, and then it's public domain. Anyone can get it. Once you bring something to the police, and you get something in the form of a complaint or a police report, it becomes that report you write about so-and-so did this or that becomes a public record. I mean, some aren't as attainable, but you get my drift. It's
Sure.
just an effective tool to besmirch and defile and debase and defame someone. And once they accomplish that, once they do that, they've accomplished what they wanted to do.
But yeah, I think this is a good point where we want to end. Do you want to say anything at the end here?
No, I think we've said enough for now, and
Okay.
I'm sure we'll be talking again. But thanks for inviting me on again.